Welcome to our webinar on ClinWiki. I'm Sharon Terry, President and CEO of Genetic Alliance, and I'm happy today to have with us Willie Hoos, who is investor, entrepreneur in the life sciences for a very long time. I've known Willie for years, working in with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, which is where I've also met Amy Westerman, and both of them will present to you this really exciting way that they have envisioning we people's connection to clinical trials. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. Really great to be here and tell everyone a little bit more about ClinWiki and what it is we're doing. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen since I have some slides. So I'm Amy Westerman, as Sharon mentioned, and I'm the Executive Director of ClinWiki, and Willie Hoos is the founder and board chair. And we're going to talk today a little bit about how we've been building expert clinical trial communities on ClinWiki. And so first, I'm going to talk a little bit about who we are, and then Willie will talk a little bit about the problem, the solution, and I'll pick back up on our curation process and our communities currently, as well as show you some of our search tool and do a short demo as long as it cooperates. So our mission is to be the most comprehensive source of clinical trial information for patients and their care team. And that's really what we've set out to do and are working on accomplishing. So we are a nonprofit search tool. We are a 100% patient-focused organization, really working to enable access to transparent and unbiased information, as well as we believe every community needs expert curated clinical trial information and really can benefit from this ClinWiki process. We're trying to change the way that information gets into the hands of patients and their caregivers and care team. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we really hope that after this webinar, you'll want to join us to build a community on ClinWiki. So as I mentioned, we are a nonprofit. We are a free to patients web-based tool, and we help people with serious illnesses find clinical trials and make informed treatment decisions, which ultimately will improve patient outcomes and hopefully advance medical innovation. And we say that we're expert sourced, and we'll go into exactly what that means. But we do take the public clinical trial database and we enable those that are experts in the disease area to annotate and structure trials. And then we provide improved search tools in addition to that. Our goal is to be as transparent and comprehensive as possible. So we truly are open and our code is open source. So we really believe in the transparency and the openness and the collaboration that comes from the community, and really providing people a way to give back this knowledge and this information that they gain along the way to the community, and we'll make it easy to do so. And as I mentioned, we really are trying to improve patient outcomes. That's the ultimate goal. And this tool has been shaped by and for patients and is genuinely agnostic. We want better and faster trials to be available to patients. So just a little bit about our team and who we've been working with. So as I mentioned, I'm the executive director. My background is in public health, originally molecular bio, but then saw the need for better translation of clinical trial information for patients while I was at the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, overseeing several clinical initiatives, one of which was the patient registry. And I had a family friend who, while I was there, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And with my MPH and that health education background and being at PanCan, I thought I was well positioned to be able to help him. And, I was eventually able to help him enroll in a trial, but I saw all of the hurdles that we went through to get him there. And thankfully, he did enroll in a trial that likely extended his life, but really just saw the need for better information, making it easier to sift through all of the trials, etc. So that's really why I came on board to ClinWiki to work with Willie, and I'll stop there and let him talk a little bit about himself and our board.
Yeah, so thanks, Amy. So Willie Hoos and founded ClinWiki out of this need that one of the missing pieces for why we aren't getting more trial participation is this access to the information and leveraging the enthusiastic advocacy populations that really are the best position to kind of own and evolve each area of disease as clinical trials. And my background, I was a chemist. I started a software company at one point, and my father got pancreatic cancer, and I just watched. That's what caused me to reset my career into healthcare. And then I've done a mix of product development, medical devices, drugs, and also personalized medicine diagnostics. And through that came to PanCan and have been a consultant and on patient-facing programs with PanCan. And that's where we met Sharon through some of the registry projects and other things that Genetic Alliance has done. So it's really exciting to be here, and thanks for all the attendees and interest. Just a quick comment on, we work with Code the Dream, which is a code academy that serves various populations and helps lift people up into a high potential coding career. So we kind of have a mission partner in our development side as well. And then on our board, we just have a nice selection of technology and pharma and academic. So we've got Matthews from Duke and has done a lot of really interesting stuff around clinical trials and clinical research. Grant is this chief technology officer of Wikimedia Foundation, which runs Wikipedia. Michael Kinch is at WashU and writes a lot about some of the challenges of clinical trials, and he used to work in cancer drug development, and Deborah still does. And Kent comes from multiple kind of finance and corporate governance roles. So that's our team, and we're excited with what we're building. So if we keep going, next slide. So this problem is that, especially for serious diseases that have poor outcomes, trials are really one of the best options for the treatment. So when patients are seeking trials that are really a treatment option, but also contributing to research, that's when really understanding that trial landscape. And I think that's the area that a lot of the diseases that have strong advocacy groups around are in that situation, whether it's a rare disease or a common disease. And so that's our primary focus. There's other trials that don't fit that definition that also need information, but this is the biggest area of focus for ClinWiki. And how do we solve this low participation rate? Information is not the only thing, but it's one piece of it. So next slide. So, so what are clinical trials? Kind of, we're assuming that a lot of people on the call have a pretty good view of that. But just a couple pieces of the information. So as Amy mentioned earlier, we pull clinicaltrials.gov every night, and that's that public resource that the National Library of Medicine and NIH runs for all of us. And it was really designed, and its history was to get a handle on what clinical research is going on out there. But it has a lot of very basic, is it an interventional trial? Is it an observational trial? For example, is it a phase 1 trial, which is the early stages of drug development? Is it a phase 3 for the final approval, or a phase 4 for post-market? Those are the kind of very universal structured clinical trial information that's available that we pull in as our base starting point. But it's the layer that sits on top of that what is really needed is the disease specific language and tools to better understand the trial components. And a couple examples that you'll hear again as we kind of give the demo and talk through what some of our communities has done when Amy walks through that, is in ALS, there's a subtype of familial. There's not necessarily an easy way to get that, for example. The other is in brain tumors. It's really important to know, is that trial for newly diagnosed brain tumors or for recurrent brain tumors? So that's the kind of structuring and crowd information that is really what's needed that ClinWiki and the expert communities can build. So next slide. And I'll try to watch the chat. I saw Sharon saying put Q&A in there. So if there's anything to alert me or Amy to, let us know. So our solution is a unique search tool that enables disease communities to curate relevant trials and help patients, caregivers, and care teams make informed treatment decisions and participation decisions. So it's complementary and improves upon existing resources, and it's free, open source, public benefit for good. So how do we do that? One is it's updated with clinicaltrials.gov every night, as we've mentioned, because that's when they update nightly. It's not truly a live system, and then it's a platform for the crowd, the expert community that forms of patients, family members, physicians, researchers, and disease organizations can work together to create a community to populate the critical information about each trial that matters to their disease and their community's language. And so it's inherently customizable and built to be flexible for what each community needs. And then things like community added keywords about the trials and wiki style summary and references and links out to the relevant information on a trial. So next slide. So key concepts, it's more structured and therefore it's more searchable. It's with the keywords and the components that are most important to the community. It's editable trial summaries and consolidated information through a reference section, and then an easy to use search interface that we believe improves on some of the other tools that are out there, and finally it's continually updated and improving upon because we're building it across multiple communities and evolving what the roadmap that the communities need, and that's our development roadmap. Next slide.
Yep. And so I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about the process itself, and that's what we talk about when not only is the information continuously updated on clinicaltrials.gov, but there is this iteration process of that we have set up with the communities, and I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about that, what that means. So the way that we've been working with these advocacy organizations is, when there's interest around building a community around clinical trials, then we decide to partner with them and then really recruit experts, so researchers, doctors, scientists, patients, and caregivers to help us decide upon, what are the trials of interest and what are the most important aspects of a trial for that specific disease community that we want to highlight and make it easier to search upon, et cetera. And so once we've kind of formed a community, recruited some volunteers, gotten some input, we're able to create a subsite. And then from that subsite, then our kind of first phase of how we are adding and curating the trials is by adding community added keywords. And so this can be anything from, as Willie mentioned, the newly diagnosed for brain tumors to the ALS onset for ALS, et cetera. So it's whatever the group and the community decides are the most important aspects. So after we've added the keywords, then we will go into actually annotating the trial information itself. And this is similar to Wikipedia in that regard, in that we have a wiki section that is pretty open. So we're able to, add a lay summary that helps translate a lot of the information and some of the medical jargon that's available through clinicaltrials.gov. And then we're also able to explain that trial however most makes sense. And then we can add links of interest, so publications, any news articles, et cetera, to that wiki section we want to link to. And then the sort of next step is then once we have a more complete set of information, the trials are pretty much annotated up to that point, we then work with our partners to inform patients about the tool. So via newsletters, webinars, social media, et cetera. So it's really marketing and promoting the tool and getting users, more users from that community, information about the tool itself and the trials. And then the next sort of phase is this maintenance phase. And that's really just, we repeat and iterate on the information because it's never a final version. There's always new trials being added, new publications coming out, new information that the community learns of. And so it's really just continually a work in progress. And so that's really where that repeat and iterate comes in. We want to add more keywords, we can do that. Add more to the wiki section, we can do that. So next I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about our current communities. So we do partner with advocacy organizations as they are the experts in that disease area. We provide the platform, but they really, have the expertise, the network of doctors, researchers, patients, and caregivers to help us along this process. So I'm going to talk first a little bit about our ALS group, and that is our more robust group further along in the process. We began working with the Golden West chapter of the ALS Association about 1.5 years ago, and luckily they immediately saw the vision and jumped on board to help us with some of this volunteer recruitment. And so we were able to initially recruit about 7 people and 1 project leader to help us out. And as a group, we created that site, als.clinwiki.org. And I'm actually going to show you in the demo what exactly I'm referring to and show you it. But this allowed us then to add the ALS specific information and kind of configure the tool and the view of the information to how the community wanted. And so once we had that subsite, and then we decided as a group what keywords, community added keywords we wanted to focus on first, which included ALS onset and breathing ability, et cetera. And I'll touch on that in the next few slides. Then we used our workflow tool to be able to pretty easily tag all of the recruiting ALS trials. Those are the ones we focus on first. And during this process, we did have more volunteers join us and had about 20 volunteers in total help us out on this. And so that was kind of the first phase, as I mentioned, in the curation process. And so then we moved on to the trial annotation piece of it. And for the ALS group, we decided as a group that we wanted to have a list of questions, kind of like frequently asked questions in the wiki section. And we, vetted those lists of questions, solicited feedback from multiple stakeholders just to get community buy-in and make sure that we were asking the right questions the right way. And then we made the effort to input all of that information into each of the wiki sections for the recruiting trials. And actually a group of 5 of us met in San Diego pre-COVID to decide on that template and finalize it and begin working on that curation piece. After completing the wiki sections, then we have been promoting it via the ALS Golden West chapter's newsletter, which goes out to a bunch of people, close to 40,000 people, as well as joined webinars, and then have been working really closely with their care managers, and because they are the ones that help intake new people with ALS who have been recently diagnosed. So we really wanted to make sure that they were familiar with the tool and could help patients and their care team understand how to use it and be able to direct them to it. And so, we've gotten initial feedback that they find it really useful, certainly much easier to use than clinicaltrials.gov in terms of searching and the comprehensiveness of the content. And, this was really a good opportunity for other groups to join in along the way. So we did have the Martha Olson Fernandez Foundation join us. And so it's a great way for other nonprofits and advocacy organizations to work together to really curate the information and get it out to people. And then our other groups that we're working in, or areas that we're working in, are brain tumors with the Musella Foundation. And that is not quite as far along as ALS, but a little bit further. So we have done some of that initial keyword ad and are actually currently putting together some videos to be able to post onto the wiki section. And then we're also working in stomach cancer with the Hope for Stomach Cancer organization. And then we are also working in Lynch syndrome, which is a hereditary cancer foundation that is trying to help with Lynch syndrome. And so this is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our search tool, just so you have an idea. So this is the results section, all of which these pieces are all configurable. So we can add as many of on this left-hand toolbar, we can add as many of these filters or facets as we'd like. And same with this kind of card view is what we call it. So all of this is very configurable to what is most useful and necessary when you're wanting to find out about a trial. We're also able, this is a newly added feature, but we have a save, search, and subscribe functionality, which I'll show on the demo itself, but this allows you to be able to receive a weekly updated email with any trials that have been added or changed in the past week. And then this is our guided search, because we got a lot of feedback as we have been working with our early community partners that the search results, even though it's clearer, it still can be a bit overwhelming for folks. And so this guided search is just a view of the facets or filters. And this is, again, all configurable, so we can add as many filters as you would like here. Versus, that can be for the kind of standard filters as well as the crowd added filters. So the type and onset for ALS in particular. And this is the trial page, or an example of a trial page. Again, all of this is very configurable. We can move sections around, add information or not show information, etc. And this is the wiki section that I was referring to. And these are some of the questions that the group and the community decided upon. But the wiki section is fully editable, it's open, and you can add the links and the references as I was talking about. So now I'm just going to show the live version just so you have an idea. And hopefully you can see this okay.
Amy, just as a pause before you go into the demo,
sure, yeah.
in case there's any questions or anything that anyone wanted to ask, I'm just going to pause for a sec.
I did see there was some chats, but I can't see the chats very easily. So
okay, sorry, keep going. I just thought it was pause.
Sure. Yep. Great. So this is the ALS site, as I was mentioning, and you can see here that there's currently 123 currently recruiting studies going on. And I'm going to filter down on the interventional trials. So as I mentioned, these are kind of all of the standard filters that you might see in clinicaltrials.gov. So you can filter down on phase, etc. Our location, we are able to do, a radius-based search. So if we wanted to search for 50 miles within a zip code, you can do that. And you can also search based on your current location. You can search by the facility or study site, etc. And then, but as you add more filters, it does automatically filter down this information. So you can see you can narrow in and back out pretty easily. So I'm going to look at the familial specific ALS studies for that. And this, just one note, this PACT rating or patient-centric trial design rating is, we have incorporated that from another ALS group. They've come up with this objective way to sort of rate the trial design And it's not about the efficacy of the treatment. It's purely on the design itself, whether there's scientific backing, whether it provides expanded access or open label extension. So that all rolls up into the rating itself. So that's something that we are hoping to incorporate wider, but this is our sort of first take at it. There is one trial with 5 stars. We can look at that one too. And so when I click on show trial results, then we can see this one trial here. And if we want to read more about the trial, we can do that. And we see all of the trial sites that it's going on. This is the main study contact information, if it's available, as well as the site-specific study contact information. And it also gives the status for the site itself as well, the recruitment status. We can see most of these are recruiting. And then we do have a study therapies section. This one's quite long. This is a platform trial. But if you wanted to read about each of the individual regimens, you could do that. And then this is the wiki section that I was talking about and all of the questions. And this is quite long, but this is kind of how they wanted to split up and divide up the information to make it a little more digestible, etc. And then this is the reference section where you can add any articles, etc. So if you wanted to read about the patient-centric trial design rating for that trial, in particular for this Healy platform study, you can do that. And this is all of the workflow information, kind of that backend information that allows us then to leverage. Now that it's been tagged, we can leverage it to be able to be used as a filter. And we do maintain all of the information that is available on clinicaltrials.gov. And so if you did want to read the long information, you can do that at the bottom there. Again, this is all very configurable to what makes the most sense for that community. So for example, the Mizella Foundation, since we haven't made the effort yet to really edit the wiki sections, we've sort of de-emphasized that and have just this kind of the brief description available to read about the trial. But once we make the effort to curate it, then we can move that up on the page. So I think that was most of what I wanted to highlight on that. I just wanted to show that you can still back out of the information and be able to see all of the trials. And this is again, this toolbar on the left is all of the filters. And so if we wanted to look at the different therapies that are involved, this makes it much easier to be able to see, kind of get a snapshot of which trials, if there was a particular therapy you were interested in, you can sort of see all of what is available and narrow in on that if you would like to.
And Amy, I think 2 things that I was going to highlight is things
Sure.
like that ALS cause with familial. That's that customized information that you really couldn't filter down to the 19 studies that include that without this additional wiki layer. So that's one piece that, and that makes a big difference if you're starting with 19 versus 120 studies to decide where to dive in. And I think that's where the care managers at ALS and the patients who are using it, see that extra benefit. And then the other point, back to one of the questions from the chat, so let's say there was an ALS study that wasn't properly categorized as for ALS or not ALS, that first level tag as ALS there in the center, that is the 123 US recruiting studies. That was what the community has done the characterization of. And that has that ALS tag regardless of what disease it was listed as or what keywords were in there. And so it gives that control to the community to list the trials that should be in there, and keep the ones that shouldn't be out, but also have the flexibility to adjust from there. And then something like the recruiting status updates through clinicaltrials.gov automatically. And so that 123, it's nice that it was still that today, but it could have changed last night.
And one way to kind of keep track of that is you could save a search for the conditions, say, for example, if we want, so without the tag itself, you could save the search. And then because I'm signed in right now, this is the kind of subscribe to save searches where I'll receive the weekly email. So then anything that changes in this list of trials, it will be updated. You'll receive an email and you can kind of add the trials that you want to that ALS tag that Willie was talking about. I hope that makes sense.
Great, and I see a question from Jeff about, do we hope workshops for people interested? I think, and the main thing is, contact Amy or myself, and primarily Amy, and I think we can work one-on-one with any questions, and figuring out how to build out a community. That's one of the actions that we certainly are looking for out of today's webinar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our kind of general email is just clinwiki@clinwiki.org. My email is just amy@clinwiki.org if you wanted to reach out to me directly. Are there any other questions?
Anything else from anybody else? While we're seeing if there's any more questions, I'll just add that, as many of you know, Genetic Alliance, with your help, since it's completely crowdsourced and long tail, keeps a resource called diseaseinfosearch.org. And right now, we're in the midst of a major transformation of that website. And one of the pieces that we're very interested in is connecting to and having, in fact, ClinWiki replace the clinicaltrials.gov link that we've used for years and years and years. That's an API from them with some filters on it that don't work very well, as we all know, since trying to index or search or any other thing, the non-database nature of clinicaltrials.gov is really tough. So I mentioned that mostly as a great endorsement of what Willie and Amy are doing here, that this has long been needed, and we're really excited to see it come, and that it will become part of Disease Info Search. So we'll hope to make the integration such that it makes it easy for you guys who are updating your listings in Disease Info Search every 6 months or so to also be able to give your members, your clinicians, your researchers much better information about which clinical trials are actually useful, and down to these granular levels that Amy has showed.
Yeah, we're really excited by the potential of working with Disease Info Search and how it could really just be a way to make sure that all of the information is comprehensive on Disease Info Search as well as ClinWiki. So it seems like a perfect marrying of work.
Also makes the suite of tools that we have developed and that some others have that we're marrying now a really comprehensive suite, because I'm sure you also are aware of the platform for engaging everyone responsibly, which is Genetic Alliance's registry system, which in fact the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network used, and we worked with Amy there and Willie, that in fact when you use that platform and amass your numbers of individuals with connections to their electronic health records, and then have the opportunity to integrate also with what's available in terms of clinical trials, we're hoping that these flywheels begin to turn that allow obviously good trials to be established with protocols that are influenced by the very people that need these studies, and that in fact these trials get enrolled, because the other thing we all know is that the low trial enrollment in the US and abroad creates a lot of failed trials in the system. So the work of all these different systems together, we hope will make it easier for people at your average clinician, I like to say smart Girl Scouts as researchers, to really get these solutions for the people that we all serve much quicker.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Good. Okay, if there's no more questions, you know how to get in touch with Amy, and obviously you can get in touch with them through us as well. We'd be happy to connect you. This has been recorded, so you can look back over it to go through the incredible amount of detail that Amy shared with us, and see how they have really boiled down a lot of information, a lot of process, and a lot of methods into a palatable piece for us advocacy leaders, as well as for the community writ large. So thank you, Amy and Willie. Any last word from you guys?
No, thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to kind of talk about more widely what we've been doing. You know, we've been sort of in the pilot phase, if you will, as an organization, but now that we have had a handful of early community partners to help us work out a lot of details and really work through any of the issues, we are, ready to have more communities join us. So we'd be thrilled to have more subsites, more information that's being added. Our database does encompass all clinical trials going on in the US. So there's opportunity for whatever disease area is needing better clinical trial information. We are able to kind of help them with that using the platform that we've created in our search tools, et cetera. But the power and the information that is most useful comes from the communities. And so that's why we really do need their help to help us get that information into ClinWiki. So I really hope that we're able to have more people join, and I'm really excited by the opportunity and the potential. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and look forward to doing follow-up. Thanks for everybody for joining.
Yes, thanks very much. And I would say get in line now that they've opened the doors, because you can get priority status at this point, but I'm not so sure a little later on, because I think we'll see a lot of people jumping aboard. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
Thanks
Thank
so
you, everybody.
much.